Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Most Important Conversations meditations. We stream these each morning and we also host them live if you'd like to join. Each morning we have a talk before the meditation begins, and the talk is pulled or derived from some of the broader and more in-depth versions of the topics that we deal with in our whole life architecture weekly program. The theme of the meditations and of whole life architecture is liberation and liberating oneself to be the creator of your life. After that, we have a meditation, either guided or a observer watcher meditation, a silent meditation. And we do these 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Since our theme for these meditations is liberation, we have been speaking about, over the last couple of weeks, the experience of suffering and how self-deception contributes to that suffering. It is a natural course of the human mind to want to deceive itself in order to avoid having to make any change to the way we are living and being and operating in the world. So our minds become very adept, are very clever at deceiving oneself, at engaging in self-deception. And again, the reason is, if we saw the truth about how we were showing up in the world, and if we had to confront that truth, it would require a transformation in the way we are living and being and how we are engaging in life. We would have to change things. We would have to address things that are out of alignment for us. So instead, we end up tolerating things in our life that are out of alignment simply to assuage the brain. And we buy into the narratives and the stories of our brain's self-deception. Examples of this are really even mundane and boring, but very typical. You don't need to go on that walk today. You don't need to eat that healthy meal. You can start next week, and next week never comes. You don't need to apologize for that thing that you said. They deserved it. An apology would show vulnerability. It may likely require a change in your behavior. So our brain deceives us. You were right about that. And one of the ways that our brain really locks us in is by tying our behavior to our identity. That somehow we are our behavior. And to acknowledge our behavior as being out of alignment, as being problematic for who we are, is saying something against our very self, that we are not enough or default. We are defective. So because our brain ties our behavior to our self and makes an identity out of it, these two things collapse. And we in our own mind, our very being is how we show up in the world, versus how we show up in the world as being something that is an artifact of what's deeper under the surface. How we show up is not our identity. It's not us. It's an artifact of the level of awareness, or inversely, the level of ignorance we have about our true nature, about our true self. It doesn't mean that our true self is the way we show up in the world, but the way we show up in the world is an artifact of the level of awareness or ignorance we have about ourself. And one of the main areas where we are ignorant about ourselves is the power we have as creators, that to be a human being is to be fundamentally a creator at the essential level, that we are creating everything in our life, whether we realize it or not, whether it's by design or by default. And one of the things, speaking about liberation, that keeps us trapped in behavior, that does not align with us is fear. In fact, many would argue that fear is at the source of why we continue to recursively double down on behavior that does not align with us. In other words, what you fear owns you. What you fear will determine your behavior. Now, coming back to where I started, you as an identity are not fear, but fear determines your behavior. And if you're not fear, then your behavior also does not define you. But as far as our brains are concerned, to keep us trapped in this fear-based matrix, we are our behavior. And if our behavior is derived from fear, then we are in fact identifying with fear. We are fear instead of creator. And we all know that creativity cannot exist or occur from a state of fear. In a state of fear, human beings become feral, defensive, become outward focused, begin to lash out at society and life. So the question becomes, in the spirit and intention of further liberating ourselves, what do you fear? And most people, upon hearing that question, wouldn't be able to answer it. For most people, they would say, I don't fear anything, because we've been taught as a culture, no fear. Just do it, even in our sports slogans like Nike and the No Fear brand. We've been taught that to acknowledge that there is fear under the surface is weakness. So better to hold up and define and defend the identity of being strong and fearless. In fact, we equate strong and fearless as the same thing. We don't see vulnerability as a strength. We don't see acknowledging our areas of fear as a strength, when in fact it is probably one of the greatest acts of strength. To acknowledge, to vulnerably acknowledge what you are afraid of, because to acknowledge that is to stare directly at the thing that owns you. To acknowledge it is to begin to take away the thing that to take the power away from the thing that owns you. But you've got to be vulnerable enough, strong in your vulnerability, to acknowledge where you're owned. Because whatever you fear, you will bend your behavior to ensure that you avoid it. And this happens at the microcosmic level of our relationships, fearing saying sorry to someone, so we don't say sorry and we hold it in, and look at how our behavior morphs. We have to make them wrong. We have to avoid them, or we have to at least avoid the topic. And so we twist ourselves into pretzels trying to avoid the thing that we were unable to be vulnerable about. Happens in our relationships all the time, happens in our relationship to ourselves about, say, our health, our wellness, our career, being vulnerable enough to address, I hate what I do, and being able to stand in that and be with that and let that transform you so that you have the courage to start to do something you do want to do in the world that aligns with who you are, that inspires and activates your creativity. So consider that what you fear owns you, and what you fear will continue to own you until you are able to vulnerably be with it. Ask yourself right now, what am I afraid of? Look around in your life if you're unclear. Where are you doing things that are out of alignment for you? Where are you doing things by default? Where are you doing things because you've always done them And yet, even while you do them, you're in constant complaint, or you're certainly not experiencing aliveness as a result of it. If you are not experiencing aliveness doing the things you do in your life, you need to look under them. You're doing them because you're in fear of something. You're doing things that don't align with you because you're afraid of what happens if you don't do them. Maybe you fear not making enough money. Maybe you fear that no other opportunities will show up. Maybe you fear people's judgment. Maybe you fear the community you're a part of looking down on you because this is what we do here as an identity, and how could you reject it? Maybe you fear standing outside of your conditioning. Some of you may have followed in your family's footsteps in terms of a career path or a life path or a wellness path. Your conditioning taught you how to eat, what to eat. It taught you whether to exercise or not and how to exercise. It taught you who was acceptable to be in relationship with, whether as a romantic partner or friends, which communities were acceptable. We don't marry outside of our church. We don't hang out with people outside of our religious tradition or our cultural traditions. All of these things are the kinds of things we learn in our conditioning and grow up with. And underneath them is the fear to change, even though you may be dying inside. Desperately trying to express yourself authentically. Desperately trying to embrace your creative power as a creator, to create a life that aligns with you, even though it may go against everything in your conditioning. It may go against your culture. It may go against your family values. It may go against your religion. It may go against your very belief systems about what you even think is possible. So what do you fear? What area of your life right now are you not alive around? It may not be that you are depressed. It may just be a total lack of thriving and aliveness, a total lack of excitement and joy. If there are areas in your life where you're not absolutely thrilled to dive into each day, what is the fear keeping you there? What is the fear trapping you in it? And can you be vulnerable enough, strong enough in your vulnerability to acknowledge this to yourself? Even just to yourself to start with. You don't have to shout it from the rooftops. You don't have to tell everybody. Just that first acknowledgement of something you're afraid to address, something you may feel shame around, but that this area of your life does not make you come alive. This area of your life, this person in your life, this circumstance in your life does not bring you joy and make you come alive, and you're merely tolerating it because it's just what we do, as the saying goes. It's who I am. It's what's expected of me. I don't know another way. I'm afraid to learn something new. I'm afraid to stand in my power. What is that for you? As we move into our Watcher Observer meditation this morning, I invite you to have that in the back of your mind, to give consideration to the things or thing that is owning you right now. And just bringing your awareness to it, acknowledging it, being vulnerable about it with yourself is a powerful first step to transforming it. Because once you see it and you acknowledge it and you're vulnerable enough to acknowledge it, you can't unsee it. It will awaken you in the middle of the night until it's addressed. It will be on your mind throughout the day. You'll be reminded of it over and over again. And so the unraveling of the thing that owns you has already begun simply with awareness. You will be at some point forced by your own will to take action around it. Because it's only in obfuscation and distraction and escape that what owns us can thrive. It's only when we don't acknowledge those parts of ourself or our life that are out of alignment that they are allowed to persist. What you resist persists. And if you resist to acknowledge where you are not joyful, where you are unaligned, where you are not thriving, where you are not fully alive, it will persist. And it will deepen. And the conditions won't get better. They will only get more and more painful. Your suffering will increase. So it's better to be vulnerable and to address, what are you afraid of? What is keeping you doing things or being in circumstances that are not bringing you tremendous joy, where you are not thriving on all levels? What are you afraid to let go of? What are you afraid to lose? So let's move into our watcher observer meditation this morning with that in the back of your mind, not as an active thought, but as an idea for your subconscious mind to be with and to reveal to you where those areas are in your life, where you are trapped in fear and merely tolerating them. When we're in the watcher observer meditation, you are not your thoughts or emotions. You are distinguishing yourself from them, sitting in a comfortable posture, taking a few deep breaths. We begin to experience the space of ourself and the space between ourself and our thinking and our emotions. In this meditation, we allow our emotions to rise and fall naturally as they want to, without judgment, without resistance, and without attachment. In this meditation, we allow our brain to do what it does. It thinks. It thinks like our heart beats and our lungs breathe. It's just what it does. We do not have to attend to every thought, chase them, ruminate on them. Thoughts come and go like clouds drifting in and out of our awareness in the sky. They're just thoughts. Instead of being a habituated, unconscious, walking reaction to everything in life, the observer-watcher meditation starts to create this distinction so that we can start to be in the world and not of it. We can start to engage in the world, but not being trapped of its ways. And one of the ways the world traps us is it traps us in fear. Fear of being different. Fear of doing things different. Fear of marching to our own drum. A drum that aligns with our authentic self. The of the world conditioning wants to keep us in a groupthink trap. At the very least, it gives us binary choices. You're either good, bad, right, wrong, conservative, liberal. Christian, Muslim, all the different ways we divide and isolate ourselves, not giving ourselves the grace and the gift of being complex creators, not pigeonholed into any one identity. Because identity is less important when you are a creator than the act of creating. And you don't have to be an artist to be a creator. Being a creator is what humans do. And in order to be a creator, we have to learn to separate our thoughts from ourself, our emotions from ourself, to still be able to engage with them without conflating our identity with them. And that's what this meditation does. It begins to work that muscle, that reflex, so that when you're out in the world, you don't fall into the trap of being of it. This morning, as we move in and we start to observe our emotions and our thoughts, you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions. You're observing them, and you're observing them with an open mind and an open heart for the answer that your subconscious mind will provide. Where am I in fear? Where am I trapped in fear? And what does it look like in my life? How does it show up? What areas does it keep me trapped in? Where am I not joyful? Where am I not aligned? Where am I not thriving? Having the courage to be vulnerable, to admit and see that and have awareness is the beginning path of your liberation from that conditioning. So for the next few minutes, there's nothing to do but observe and watch. Don't chase a thought if it enters your mind. If you notice that you start thinking or planning or ruminating on a thought, pull yourself out of it. Let that thought drift away. As best as you're able to, keep a clear and open mind ready to receive the wisdom and the insights that your higher self, your subconscious, will provide you. Where are you in fear? I'll see you all in a few minutes. And welcome back, everybody. Reconnecting to the world without from the world within. Reconnecting to the day you have ahead of you and the choice you have as a creator for who you're going to be as you go about your day. Are you going to be another clone of your conditioning? Are you going to be a walking, habitual, unconscious reaction to everything that happens today? Or did your higher self illuminate some area or areas of fear where you are bending to that which is not aligned with you? And can you see where that is in your day? And will you be able today to address it from a different place? In full acceptance that this is where you are, the isness of this moment has you where you are, and an acknowledgement that you're unwilling to tolerate it any further, so that this can be the beginning of your liberation today from your conditioning. The choice is yours. We're always at choice. As creators, we have absolute choice. We can choose to stay in our conditioning because it's predictable, it's known, it's comfortable. Or we can choose to begin to liberate ourselves first with awareness of where we are in fear and where that fear has us trapped. Where in our life we are tolerating things out of alignment just because it's known and it's safer and it's predictable and we get validation from it. We all have an area of fear. In fact, we all have a few areas, at least in our life, where we are bending to that fear. Where is that for you? I'd invite you as you go about your day to keep that in the back of your mind and see if you experience flashes of insight as you go about your day. Here, there is fear here too, because I am doing this or I am engaging in this, and I am not experiencing aliveness or joy as a result of it. This too must change. Once you start to pull on that thread of fear, you start to see multiple areas where it has been at work in your life. So I'd invite you to continue to be in that watchful observer state, even as you go about your day today. Wishing you all a wonderful day, and we will continue our meditations tomorrow.